Welcome to episode 610 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. We had some player ratings, and we had the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm still looking at all those suggestions as to how do we name that this season. But people were really excited and pining for the 5 headlines, so today I've got a little bit of time, so I think we're going to do a classic 5 headlines. Options, very much like Hansi Flick has on his bench and in his squad seemingly this season. Having options is never a bad thing, so having different options to do for post-game, not a bad thing for me either this season. And for helping me figure out these 5 headlines or what I'm going to do post-game, you can join me for basically every match, unless I tell you otherwise, on Tifo. That is tifo.com, but it's down in the description or the show notes below, whether you're watching or listening. We do a watch-along. It's a live stream. You get in the chat. If you've been a Patreon or you've been on the show as a guest before, you can come on with a microphone and your camera on. I let you in. It's promo code Hola Culés. That is Hola Culés with an S on the end of Culés. That's the promo code to get in. It's free to join me, so you can enjoy that on the watch along. Barcelona versus Real Valladolid, 11 a.m. my time on the East Coast, 5 p.m. local time in Barcelona on Saturday. So that's the next one, Saturday morning. Looking forward to that one. Let's get into these 5 headlines. Well, actually, no. Let's do some quick stats beforehand. I usually do this at the end, but let's do it at the beginning because these 3 wins for Hansi Flick are a little bit historic. It's been 5 years, so mini historic. They hadn't won in their last 3 trips to Rayo Vallecano in Madrid. It was a 1-0 loss in 2021-22, a 2-1 loss, and a 1-1 draw then last season. So this has been now 4 seasons since they last won at Rayo Vallecano. That's a huge 3 points for Barcelona in points that they haven't been getting these last few seasons. And this is also the first time since 2018 that they began a season having played 3 matches and won 3 matches, going all the way back to Ernesto Valverde, who I think I'm going to be talking about a little bit with comparisons to Hansi Flick in terms of putting a system forth and making Culés feel like there are ideas and there is some stability in the way that this team is set up from match to match. So those are my stats and some of the initial thoughts before Rayo Vallecano. So let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines for Barcelona's 2-1 victory over Rayo Vallecano. Headline 1 is registration procrastination. Shout out to those in the watch along for helping me brainstorm for that one. I love the alliteration at the beginning of sentences, or whatever the headlines, but I also love alliteration at the end. So registration procrastination. As much as I have fun saying that, it was frustrating leading up to this match. Chaos off the field has been the name of the game of the finances for Barca right now. We all know that it comes down to the Nike deal, and we know that the Nike deal will bring Barcelona back to the 1-1. You don't have to worry about that. But this is my gut feeling, just kind of trusting some of the journalists in Catalonia, and you saw that less than optimistic beliefs sprinkling out of the headlines today, that I have little faith that this Nike deal not even will be finalized. It may be agreed upon, but I don't think it'll be finalized with the Liga to get Barcelona back to the 1-1 until the January transfer window or until after the window already closes. And then once Barcelona then are approved for it, then they can re-register Christensen and it's not a big deal. That's why Barcelona have reassured both Christensen and Dani Olmo that they will generate the money required in the next few months until Christensen gets back from his injury. Fortunately, they were able to use that 4-month injury waiver against Christensen to register Dani Olmo. But again, with the doctors saying that he'll be back probably sooner, but it could be 4 months, they were able to get that deal done for the registration. But as I said, Christensen should be able to come back without any trouble because the club will have then raised enough money to have that approved for him to be registered prior to January even. So hopefully this all gets done in time. With Nike, I mean, again, I don't think that's going to happen, so I wouldn't expect any other signings. And as I said on the watch along, that's why I also think that Federico Chiesa and Jonathan Tah have been 2 names that are linked to Barcelona, because looking at the other links outside of Barcelona to them, I think Chiesa is on his way to Liverpool, who are likely going to offer him a higher wage. And I mean, with how good that Rafinha has been and with Ferran Torres' place in the squad I know that people are immediately going to go out in the comments and tell me that Chiesa is a upgrade to Ferran Torres. Sure. But I mean, what are you trying to upgrade at that point? I mean, and how much are you going to upgrade at that point? And will Chiesa even fit the system? I'm not sure about that. And Jonathan Tah, yeah, I mean, I understand why Barcelona might be going for him for 20 million. He's got 1 year left on his deal, but I would also assume he's leaving Bayer Leverkusen to make much more on his wages and to see a bump and an increase in the amount of money that he's going to make per year outside of the Bundesliga. So I would say that he's likely going to an EPL team even next season as a free agent. I don't think he's leaving Bayer Leverkusen. And again, if he does, it's going to be a club that's going to offer him 13 or 12 or 13, whatever it is, million per season. And Barcelona right now can offer him like 7 or 8. So I don't see that deal happening either, but crazier things have happened. Who knows? But I also think it'd be crazy that Barcelona are even able to register anybody else outside of Christensen now that they finally registered Dani Olmo. So the first headline was a bit of negativity. The second headline is also a bit of negativity with 10-minute nap because Barcelona did not start this match well. Fortunately for us, the final 3 headlines are going to be much more positive, but the first 10 minutes for Barcelona were ugly enough that they conceded a goal, and this deserves to be a headline. And my frustration with Barca was how easily this goal seemed to be scored. It was a diagonal ball that Barcelona did not get to. It was Ferran Torres was not in position because he had tucked inside. So diagonal ball gets off. The header from the former Barcelona player in Balou heads onto the wing into space. And then Gerard Martin was behind the winger, Alvaro Garcia. Koundé didn't step forward on the offside trap on the other side. So while the other 4 times Barcelona did step forward, there was 4 offsides. Good sign for Barcelona there. They fixed it. They improved on it, but not in this instance. So the offside trap doesn't get off. And then Unai Lopez finds space at the near post. I think it was a lot of little tiny individual errors, maybe a little bit of luck involved, but a lot of little individual errors from Barcelona, and they conceded the first goal. It was also that Rayo Vallecano came out with much more energy, playing in front of their home crowd in one of the better home atmospheres. Again, it's very small, very locale, very close to the fans. So Rayo Vallecano came out with a lot of energy. Their fans urged them on to be intense and came out with a high press in that game. And we're playing well in that medium block and not letting Barcelona breathe. And it worked out for Rayo Vallecano. The good news is, and I end this second headline with some good news, Barcelona did respond. And throughout that first half, they were the better side, basically after the goal was scored. And I think throughout the rest of that game, so the remaining 115 minutes, whatever it was, the stoppage time, they were the better side. And the way they tactically even looked to respond to that was once Rayo Vallecano scored that goal, which I think they shouldn't have done here. They immediately settled from that medium block into a lower block. They were more willing to change that line of confrontation and allow Barcelona to cross balls in. And I think if Rayo Vallecano had scored that goal maybe in the 35th minute or the 40th minute, I think this would have paid off for them better. But it was so early that Barcelona was able to find a way to respond, stick with their game plan. They've been playing well on Hansi Flick. And even tactically, the way they did this was to look to overload the right side with Lamine Yamal, Koundé, Rafinha, Ferran Torres. And it was good from Lamine Yamal. I thought he was really bright on the ball so many times in the first half. They needed 2 or 3 to stop him, and that created space for Rafinha, for Koundé. And then when Ferran Torres, I thought really the only positive for Ferran Torres in this game was when he shaded over to the right side. Rafinha actually took up a central spot, and Barcelona got it deep enough that Lamine Yamal was able to, again, Ferran Torres creating space for Lamine Yamal to put Lamine Yamal in 1v1 opportunities against the likes of Pacha Espino or Alvaro Garcia. That's what you want to see. 1v1, Lamine Yamal, go to work. You got to eat. I was never really unwavering, and you can ask the people in the watch along. I was unwavering with just how much I believed that Barcelona would, if they continued the way that they were playing in that first half after the goal, that good things would eventually happen. They had the talent on the bench. Not to say that you knew that they would respond, but I like the fact that this team digs deep, knows that they have to bring an answer, and they can just trust that they have the talent to be able to respond in the way that they did. Headline 3 is Pedri Equalizer, because respond they did. When Dani Olmo came on at halftime, I thought that he wouldn't be up to match fitness to come on right at halftime. But yeah, I mean, I guess he's been training and he's a professional, and he did just play at the Euros too. So I guess he's not totally not match fit. So he comes on at halftime for Ferran Torres, which is obviously the right move. Again, I'm not trying to drag Ferran Torres. I think enough people are doing that in the YouTube comments or responding to me on social media about Ferran Torres. So I'm not looking to defend him here. But I also don't think he was so much of a negative that he's worth even dragging. But Dani Olmo, this is true, was so much of an upgrade on the field to what Ferran Torres was providing in all the different factors. Balde coming on was also an upgrade to Gerard Martin, who was making his first start. I am going to be making a 60-second YouTube short on Gerard Martin to get us acquainted to who he is. But for his first start, I think he did fine. Wasn't great, but that's the kind of player he is. He's not going to add much to you, but he's also hopefully defensively not going to subtract. Said I think he had a little bit of a part to play on the goal. So Gerard Martin, I expect him to be better. I think he might also have been a bit nervous playing in the biggest game of his career because it was his first start for FC Barcelona on the road. So maybe a bit of nerves. And Gerard Martin, I expect to hopefully be a bit better. So Balde, again, did add a bit of dynamism. But Dani Olmo was the big guy to talk about. I'm going to really highlight him when we talk about his goal, which was obviously the game winner, why he was the man of the match, why he's what we're going to talk about. But let's talk about just when he came on the field, how quickly he associated well with Pedri. And on the goal, Pedri to Rafinha to Pedri. But again, Olmo kind of starts all of this. 60th minute, I had predicted since seeing him come on at halftime that Barcelona realistically were pushing in a way that they should have scored by around the 62nd, 65th minute. So getting that goal in the 60th was exactly what the doctor ordered. And not just on this goal was Olmo good in the buildup, but Rafinha was, again, good enough in the buildup, but space had been created because of the move that Olmo made at midfield. And this was really important composure by Pedri to finish late. People have criticized him for his scoring, but the pass came behind him. He knew where the goal was, so he allowed the ball to roll across him, and then he just passed it in. And that was a tighter angle than I think it looks, even though he's in the middle of the field. But he's in the spot where he knows exactly how wide the goal is, passed it in the corner. Nice job by Pedri to have that composure and to push forward. And I will keep going on my Rafinha victory lap. I told you he was going to be not only a good player under Hansi Flick, but potentially a very important player under Hansi Flick, a consummate starter, and this has continued to be the case, not just with this assist. I actually didn't think his first touch, Rafinha's, was good today, but I'll continue to harp on the idea of ceilings and floors. And Rafinha, even when he was at Leeds United, when I would watch him occasionally, or under Xavi, I think his floor was even lower than what we could have under Hansi Flick. Rafinha, like any attacking player, is going to put up some stinkers this year, but with how hard he works and the number of positions that he fits and his familiarity and close control with his teammates, again, not great in 1v1 situations, but wingers and dribblers are not relied upon in this system. So Hansi Flick's system can bring the best out of Rafinha, which tells me that his floor in every game is going to be a positive contribution. You have to get Ferran Torres to that level, but I think Rafinha is at that level, and I'm going to continue that victory lap. This is also the point where I want to talk about Marc Bernal a little bit. We'll talk about the injury at the end, but Bernal put in another shift. That's what I'll say about Marc Bernal. He was good enough in this game to win a game. That's what you need to have from your other defensive midfielder. And he so understands, so smart of a player, whether Barcelona is building up where he has to step back as a pivot, where he has to, as a single pivot, I should say, where he has to come in between the center backs, regardless of whether he has to control and dictate pace that way, whether he's pushing forward his rest defense, by the way, because I said it on the stream, but if you're going to bring another number over to that right wing with Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres and Koundé or Rafinha, whoever it is, if you're overloading one side, that means that the defensive shift is going to have to go to that side. So your pivots or your central midfielders like Marc Bernal are going to, if they can find the right spot to tuck in or tuck high, and I would love to have tactics on this later. I'm going to have graphics, I should say, later on this. But if Bernal's going to win that ball then with his height and step forward on rest defense, his rest defense has just been so good. And the difference, we can talk about this longer on a podcast too, the difference between Nico Gonzalez as the pivot when Barcelona wanted that to happen under Koeman and what Marc Bernal does is just that extra sixth sense of where he needs to be. It is natural to him, even though he just started playing the position a year and a half ago. I'm excited about what his future can be and should be, just how much he understands from Hansi Flick already. And even his goal scoring prowess, he scored 3 goals last year for Barca Athletic, and depending on that injury, he might have 1 or 2 this year as well. Headline 4 is VAR Takeith Away. I mean, I guess we have a little negative one again, because Lewandowski should be at 4 goals in 3 games already to start this year. And I want to talk about the goal that wasn't scored because it was a fun enough goal that it was fun to talk about. A lot of this is also on Pedri, because I know he scored the goal and I'm already praising him for the goal in Pedri. But after those player ratings, I got dragged a little bit. People said that Rafinha or Koundé should have been the man of the match. And I said, that's totally fine against Athletic Club. That is completely fair with the job that Koundé did against Nico Williams and how good Rafinha was. Totally fair. My guy was Pedri in that match. I thought he was the man of the match against Athletic Club. And this match kind of vindicates all the negativity about Pedri to start this season or in perpetuity. He had so much, if this had scored, so much on this goal, the epitome of ball retention, and also a perfect fit in the Hansi Flick system. Really great stuff. Unfortunately for Barcelona, Koundé's foul then takes it away. And I want to remind people, it's not the referee in Soto Grado in this case. Figueroa Vasquez, he was a VAR for this game, so he was the one who decided what then goes to review. As in the not a penalty on Dani Olmo, which I guess, I mean, I see that. Dani Olmo didn't really have full possession, and I do think that making that forward run, he created some of the contact with the defender, even though the defender fouled him. So You understand why, because it was called a not penalty on the field, that one doesn't go to VAR. And Koundé's, while it wasn't called a penalty initially on the field, it wasn't called a foul, I should say, against Koundé on the field, then VAR taking a look at it. And then when Soto Grata had to go to VAR and then took a look at it, I understand. I know I'm defending VAR here, but I understand why they got rid of this, because yes, Koundé did have possession with his right foot, but he simultaneously committed a foul. He didn't get a yellow. You know, if it was worse than that, he would have got a yellow, but he committed a foul. It is a foul, so they wipe it off. And I think I'm not frustrated that they wiped that off. I'm frustrated that it wasn't a red on Cease later in the game for that tackle on Pedri's ankle. That's what should have been a red card later on the game. So I'm not frustrated, really, that VAR took Koundé's foul into account and took away that goal, especially because the result was 2-1. I'm frustrated there was a lack of consistency in the calls being right or wrong. And referees will get some right and get some wrong, but there were 3 big calls in this game. The Dani Olmo one, which was 50-50, and okay, fine, you had me. I agree with that. The smallest margin, but if it gone the other way, I get that too. The Koundé thing, again, I agree with VAR. I think that was a foul, and it was fair to take that away. But then for the red card that wasn't called a red card on Pedri, it's got to be a red card. VAR, what are you doing? So my issue is the inconsistency. So I also want to remind, it wasn't just Soto Grata today, who the referee, I don't think he did a great job. Could have been worse, could have been better, but it was VAR as well getting it wrong. And that doesn't take away from the fact that I'll add in here, it was a rough day at the office from Koundé, but I'm going to keep my criticism of Koundé very short, because he's allowed to have a less than stellar day every now and again. Just a few days ago, he played the full 90 and he shut down Nico Williams. So for him to be less than stellar against Alvaro Garcia and Espino and whoever else was coming in, and Barba, who came in off the bench, he, even at his not as stellar as he usually is good enough for Barcelona to win a game, and he can go in second gear against Rayo Vallecano and get the job done. So I'm not too worried about a rough day from Jules Koundé against Rayo Vallecano. And then headline 5, this is our big one, Dani Olmo Dazzling debut. The other 4 headlines kind of don't matter because he was registered, and the VAR stuff didn't affect the final result. And all the other, well, the Pedri Equalizer does matter, but even starting the game poorly, it doesn't matter because Barcelona got the 3 points because Dani Olmo is awesome. He had as good of a debut as we can remember of most players that are signed, especially in the way that he was signed, where he had to sit and wait. And Dani Olmo, that buzz that he had, the close association and the chemistry he already had with Pedri, with Lamine Yamal, even with Rafinha, with Lewandowski, the space, terrific. Really great stuff. He looks like he fits like a glove, like he could be a starter now immediately in this system at that number 10 spot. That is awesome. That feels like our first team or our top pick Champions League front 4 in Rafinha on the left, Dani Olmo in the middle, Lamine Yamal and Lewandowski. That's it for you. He already created in the first 10 minutes he was on the field before the Pedri goal was even scored. 2 opportunities for Lewandowski and Olmo, if they had scored, would have had a huge hand in creating both of them. But then your stats for Olmo on the day. The winning goal, of course, 39 touches, 21 of 25 passes, 1 cross, 2 chances created, one of them being a big chance, 2 dribbles, 2 shots, 1 off the bar, 3 ball recoveries, 3 of 6 on his duels that were won, and he also won a foul. That's also, by the way, 3 goals / assists. So 3 goals plus assists in 3 games for Lamine Yamal, who could very likely finish the season with 20 plus assists and 7 or 8 goals. It'd be close to a 30 goal contribution season from Lamine Yamal. That is what he could be on pace for, but let's relax on that. As I said with Lamine Yamal, always be patient, but just kind of wait for the numbers to happen instead of preparing and predicting for them. But back to it on Dani Olmo. It not only passed the stats test, it also passed the numbers test. He also had the impact and showed that he could be a big game player, which he knew that he was. I kind of almost want to stop it there and put a break on Dani Olmo, because figuring out what he did is going to take almost a second rewatch of that second half. I do have to end this with some bad news, though. I don't know about Marc Bernal at the moment. We know he got fouled late. It did not look good on that knee. He could not walk off in the field in his own power, and that is a real worry. Marc Bernal, I would hope that is a star that was not put out just as it was beginning to shine. That is a real bummer. And I already mentioned Pedri took some studs late, and that should have been a red card. Hopefully he is all right as well and doesn't have to miss any time. Fermin Lopez did come on late to close out the game, ran around with the ball a ton, bringing a lot of energy, but also lost the ball a ton. And he did cost Bernal a yellow card. But again, that yellow for accumulation might not matter if he can't get fit. Barcelona are now in a world of hurt, though. The international break might not be able to come at a better time, because You're waiting for Gabi to come back in November. De Jong is out. I mean, definitely at this point. Pedri is constantly injury riddled, and you have Marc Bernal. So now I'm a bit worried about that double pivot position. I don't know what they're going to do. Christensen's out. Eric Garcia, they definitely can't even have him transfer out at this point. I mean, but they're going to rush him back for Saturday because he's injured too. So there is worry at that position that not getting Mikel Moreno and instead going for Dani Olmo, it's a bit worrying. And can Dani Olmo play that deep? He only did it like 3 times for RB Leipzig. He hasn't really done that in his career. So I'm interested to see how, I mean, Hansi Flick is playing well in that formation. Don't change anything. I'm probably not going to have another podcast this week. This is kind of the other podcast. And then I'll have the show on Saturday. So I don't know. I might even have to do another little short YouTube thing and podcast thing to talk about what the options might be after we figure out what happened to Marc Bernal. There were nervous moments late in this game. Inigo Martinez to the rescue. He also looks like a pivotal player with all the injuries, especially the latest one to Christensen. He's not going anywhere for a player that we thought they wouldn't be able to register and thought we'd have to get rid of just to make it work for the FFP. But no, he's not going anywhere. Inigo Martinez back to the form that we saw when he was doing well for Athletic Club, and he's going to be important for at least the first half of the season until Ronald Araujo can return. Again, the watch along on Saturday, that is 11 a.m. local time. That's here in the East Coast for me of the US, and then 5 p.m. local time in Barcelona. Promo code Ola Culés. The link is in the description or the show notes below on Tifo. Become a member so then you can get the notification that I'm going to be going live. So I go live basically just as the match starts. A reminder again to patrons. I know that you're watching. I know you're paying attention. So once you get in front of a camera with a microphone, if you're a patron and you've done that before, then I would love to have you on as a guest. You can come on live on the watch long and we can chat there. And then in the meantime, if you're looking for any other announcements, Twitter, Instagram, Close Group, Discord, that's where all the communities are. And then a good rating on the podcast apps and subscribing to the YouTube are always the easiest way to help me out as well. Most importantly, though, 9 points from 3 matches. The best start since 2018. I feel revitalized. I feel like there is newfound energy and I'm enjoying it. I enjoy watching FC Barcelona and I've always wanted to enjoy watching FC Barcelona. So thank you so much for watching along and listening to the Barcelona podcast. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And Forza Barca.